this Photoshop video on presentation, we're going to take our photographs of drawings that need to be cropped and adjusted in order to post to the classroom. So I've got a couple of photographs of drawings here, just with poorly cropped, poorly photographed, poorly aligned. This one's not as bad, but still need to do some things to it. Same thing here. And we're going to start by the first one. I want to crop it. I've got my marquee tool. I want to get rid of that background, so it's not too bad. It's aligned pretty straight. So I want to carefully crop it without compromising my composition. So I need to really align things carefully so that I don't get any of that background. And I think I can do that without really sacrificing much of my composition or unbalancing the composition. So I'm going to go to Image, Crop, and that looks pretty good. Oops, I missed a section on this side. I'm going to recrop that there because we really want to have nothing but the drawing. And the next one, this one's really skewed at quite an angle. So the first thing I want to do is adjust the rotation of it a little bit. I'm going to choose arbitrary, half a point counterclockwise. That looks, yeah, it's actually supposed to go counterclockwise. So okay, I have that default white background. I don't need the whole drawing. I mean, obviously with the window casting a bright light and cast shadows on this side, I'm going to just select the part of the drawing demonstration that is, worth saving at this point, and I'm going to extend that over here, keeping in mind, that I want the composition to be, pretty well balanced. So let's see, image crop. Let's see how that looks. That's not too bad. I could touch it up a little bit or just crop a little bit more to get rid of some of the darker edges. And I want to actually zoom in a little bit more because the balance of the composition was not to my liking. So I'm going to crop that a little bit more. Now I have a halfway decent drawing that I can touch up. Here's another one. It's not too badly cropped, but you can see the, from with the viewfinder, you can see the curve in the piece of paper, the warp in maybe the drawing pad or something like that. So I'm just going to crop off a little bit. I'm going to have to sacrifice a little of my composition. So now I've got that one ready, and I've got one more. There's not that much there, and instead of cropping it, not that much of the red carpet behind it, I'm going to use my stamp tool, and I'm going to hold my Option key down, your Alt Option key. Or if you have a PC, there might be a little different step than Mac, but that's what we do in a Mac. It's pretty similar in Photoshop, in PCs. So get another area there and just drag that across to get rid of that kind of red in the corner. And the same thing here, I'm going to choose this area and just touch that up a little bit and drag that shadow area out, and I think I'm pretty much, now I've got it. So one more spot there, and now I've got a drawing that I can present fairly well. The only thing is, notice there's a little bit of a reddishness to it, and that may be from reflected light from the floor that it was on. So I can either go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate, and that changes it to a gray, or I'm going to go back to where it was and show you Command or Option and the letter U brings up this tool in Photoshop. This is not available in Illustrator, and I can actually take all the color out, desaturate, and say OK, and now it's gray instead of that reddish tint in this area. So now that's a more professional presentation. A couple of them needed adjusted with the light. This one's pretty dark, so I'm going to go to Adjustments, Curves, and notice what I can do here. I can lighten it. I can add a little bit more contrast because it's pretty dark. But you got to be careful not to overdo this because it can get real pixelated and it just doesn't look natural. It doesn't look like a drawing when we overdo this effect. So, better to have a well-lit, photograph. But if not, then you can do some subtle touch-ups like this one. I'm going to do Image, Adjustments, Curves, and I can make that a little bit brighter, and I want to make sure I don't lose the contrast that I had in my drawing, and I'm going to say okay, so that looks pretty good. So now maybe I want to take a couple of these drawings and put them in a new image file. So I've got my image file already set up. My image file size is 800 by 600 because that's the size that we want to use for the classroom. And I also have, these are the same image file size. So what I'm going to do is copy paste it, and considering the fact that it is the same size, right? It's, oh, that one's 1200 by 800. I'm going to save that one. I can either save it to say 1/2, 400, oops, 400 by 300. I'm going to say okay, and expand that up to its full size, and that's the size it's going to be. I can select the whole thing with the marquee tool, or use my keyboard, Command or Option C to copy it, and then I'm going to my Untitled New File, Command V, and notice that it is almost the same size as my file. So I'm going to use my Transform Move Arrow tool, and notice it makes these corners. I'm going to hold my Shift key down to prevent distortion, and I am going to shrink this down in size and move it into place. I could probably make it a little bit bigger because I want to put another drawing over here. So I'm going to align that there, click on the marquee tool, and it brings this up, and I'm going to apply that. I'm going to go back to my other drawing. Let's see, not that one, not that one. Let's use this one. Okay, I already selected that, Command Copy, and let's go back to my Untitled file. And notice I've got it added a layer when I copied and pasted the first drawing. I'm going to do that Command V again, and notice it copied and pasted the second one. I'm going to move that into position. It's a little bit larger. It was at 400 pixels wide. I'm going to reduce the scale of this a little bit so that it's the same size, holding my Shift key down to make sure it's aligned properly. And I think that looks pretty good, but I want to move this one a little bit more. I'm going to go back to that layer, select that layer, and oops, I forgot to apply. I have to apply transformation first. Now I can select that other. Okay, and now I can get my arrow tool to move it, adjust the size a little bit more. I'm holding that Shift key down to prevent distortion. Oops, really got to be careful with that. If you let go too soon, the image just looks warped. So don't want to do that. And now I have it mostly lined up. I'm going to apply again. So this sometimes takes a couple of times to get them lined up. People don't have a whole lot of patience sometimes to line things up so that they really look like they're carefully and professionally presented. So just take a few extra minutes and do that, and you'll have you get more points for presentation. Now I'm going to add a text box, and I'm going to make a text box here. I've got an 18-point size font, simple font Arial. I'm going to assign my work. Notice that the name is almost touching the drawings. I don't want that. I'm going to reduce this down or drag this down so that it's not touching, and then I'm going to apply that. And I don't need this excess white space unless I have to add a couple more drawings to it. So I'm just going to crop that, and now I'm ready to save it. Oops, it looks a little off balance. I think I'm going to crop this edge just a tiny bit so that it looks balanced. The eye's pretty good, pretty accurate. So, trust your eye and then make those adjustments. Now I can save it for the web. Nope, File, Save for Web. It opens this up, and we want to make sure we select JPEG, Optimize, because we're uploading it to the classroom. Sorry, this is just a little bit too small. Then I can save it for the classroom. So when I save it, it'll give me places to save my files, and I can title it, and I'm going to title it my last name first, goes first, then my first name. Oops, that's not my first name. And this is week number. I'm just going to make up a week number and assignment number for these drawings, and then I can save it. So you get the idea. I'm going to cancel that, and now we're ready to upload it to the classroom. All right, you guys, let me know if you have any questions.